But historians now ask, did America betray him first? Quisling, much like Benedict Arnold is synonymous with traitor in the US, there is a man from Norway who earned the same dubious honor, Vidkun Quisling. Vidkun Quisling was a Norwegian politician with strong pro-Nazi leanings, who created his own party, National Samling, as an almost direct copy of Hitler's. In contrast to Norway's general acceptance of all people, Quisling was also strongly anti-Semitic, believing certain races to be inferior to those of Nordic descent. All in all, he was a very unpopular politician, which makes his rise to power even more surprising. As Hitler made his moves in Germany across the 1930s, Quisling, now Minister of Defense, was watching closely and admiring. We know during this period he was in contact with Hitler, or at the very least Hitler's superior officers, and in December 1939, Quisling and Hitler met in person for the first time. Seizing his opportunity, Quisling shared his ultimate goal, to unify the superior Germanic countries. Hitler invaded on April 9, 1940 after multiple meetings, including with Quisling, who shared information on military dispositions in Norway. Ultimately, though, it was the government's subsequent actions that left a vacuum for Quisling to make his own moves. Despite being forewarned of the invasion, the government response was lackluster. They rejected Germany's ultimatum and, along with the royal family, fled Oslo rather than stay to hold the administrative buildings. When doing so, they declared Oslo an open city, hoping it would save them from the catastrophic shelling that had been seen in Poland's capital, Warsaw. While this may have in some ways saved the city, it also left it very open for the Germans, who were able to easily take control of significant government buildings across Oslo, in collaboration with Quisling, of course. With no one to stop him, Quisling soon, with Hitler's support, appointed a new government under his leadership, announcing his decision to the Norwegian public later that day. Unfortunately for him, Hitler's man in Norway, German Reich Special Envoy Minister Brauer, was less than impressed with this. With the failure to capture Norway's king came the inability to persuade him to accept a pro-Nazi government headed by Quisling. Brauer was in the unfortunate position of trying to handle the difficult political situation that had arisen, and there was no love lost between himself and Quisling. The unpopular usurper continued to try to secure his government over the next few days, but due to Quisling's lack of support and his own suggested ministers rejecting the positions he had appointed, it didn't take long for his attempted coup to collapse. Hitler recognized it was important to keep Quisling on his side, but also recognized it was time to step in and sort the Norway situation out for himself. Instead, he appointed Joseph Terboven as head of Norway's government, but insisted Quisling should still have a reserve role that allowed him to be involved without actually giving him any power to make decisions. Quisling continued to blatantly work and support the Nazi side, to the disgust of the Norwegian people. Under Terboven's leadership, Quisling's NS party began to decline, and by 1942, Hitler was thoroughly uninterested in continuing correspondence with the failed politician, despite his continued heavy support and movements to support the Nazi party. After the war, Quisling got his comeuppance. For his betrayal of his country, he was sentenced to death. The sack of Constantinople, 1204. The sack of Constantinople, nearly a millennia ago, is still considered one of the greatest betrayals in history, the ramifications of which are still felt and discussed today. When newly appointed Pope Innocent III called for the Fourth Crusade, he did so with the goal of liberating the Holy Lands from the hands of Islam and absorbing them into the rightful empire. In reality, however, the crusade targeted the Orthodox Greek Christians of the Byzantine Empire in a treacherous move that betrayed their shared faith. Allegedly, Pope Innocent III had no idea of the Crusaders' real intent. The Orthodox and Western Christians had been clashing for over 2 centuries by the sack of Constantinople. Their very different views of Christianity caused dissension and distrust between the two, with each viewing the other through checkered lenses. So, when the Fourth Crusade set sail in 1202, it was with advanced naval technology and an army of Venetians who had their own score to settle with those in Constantinople after earlier ejections from the city. Unfortunately, they soon found that only a third of the anticipated number of crusaders arrived, meaning they could not pay the Venetians for their fleet and provisions. In response, Crusade leader Doge Enrico Dandolo made a move that would cause him to unfavorably go down in history as one who put the wheels in motion for a Christian-on-Christian attack.